Welcome to another episode of Profitable Publishing. I'm your host, Ashley, and today we're going to be talking about something that is so important for you as an author, and it is understanding that your book is not for everyone. And so this is something I touched upon in episode 7 that's titled Find Your Reader. So if you haven't already listened to that, I highly encourage you to go back and listen to that episode because honestly, that is my most listened to episode to date. And so there are some gems and nuggets in there. Now, today we're going to go a little bit deeper into really understanding why your book is not for everyone. And when you're an author, when you are a business owner, because you're treating your book as a business, that's what we do around here on Profitable Publishing, you may be inclined to think that the more people who hear about your book, the more people who hear about your framework, your processes, they're going to be more likely to want to purchase from you. Now, from a statistical standpoint, okay, that could be true because obviously the more people who have access to hearing about you, the more likely that a percentage of them, a portion of them would be able to gravitate towards you and would be interested in what it is that you have to sell or what it is that your book is about. Now, in theory, yes, that makes sense. However, you have to consider and mitigate the idea that, okay, are you spending all your time trying to attract whoever is willing to listen? Or are you more so focused on really honing in on the people that your book is for? One thing I like to remember is that there are 8 billion people on Earth at this present time, and you only need less than 1% of them to sign up for your product or your service to buy your book in order to reach your goals. And that can be very freeing. It can also be a little debilitating because in some ways that's still a lot of people, but it means that you don't have to try to get everybody to buy your book. You don't have to try to get everybody to sign up for your programs. You really are focused on just those people who really resonate with what it is that you are selling and the lifestyle that you are showing, and not in a way that's like lifestyles and the rich and famous or cribs or look at me and all the things I have or flexing for the gram, not that, but in the sense of people who match your space, match your pace, match your vibe, match your energy, and that they're going to be the ones that you're able to help the most. So for example, people that come to me, they typically are those who either have a college degree, not that that's a requirement, but that's typically who I attract, or they've done some type of training, whether it's a trade school or something of some sort. They typically have a 9-to-5 that they're working at. They also have multiple passions that they want to bring to life, but they might not be sure how to kind of orchestrate that or get that done. They are someone who doesn't really have a big team. They might have a virtual assistant that helps them. They might have a full-time assistant, but they're pretty much in those beginning phases of business. And they understand that they need to find ways to multiply themselves before they grow. They don't want to wait to do that after they've had this huge explosion, a huge expansion of their business, because they understand that can break their business. And so those people also are ones who like to have a good time. They like to joke, they like to play, but when it comes time to get down to doing the work of business, they also are focused on that. And so we can joke and we can kiki and we can haha, but at the end of the day, it's about, okay, what are the income generating activities? What are the activities that are attracting more leads? How are we able to package our expertise into a profitable book that multiplies ourselves so that we are not running ragged and so that we can still serve people as well as not pour from an empty cup? Because if you're a service provider, that can be something where you're stretched so thin. If you're a speaker, you are capping yourself if you don't have some other way to multiply yourself outside of what it is that you just do and what comes out of your mouth. So that's an example of the type of people that would be in alignment with me. You have to consider who is your person. And this is something where I've mentioned this before a couple times, that the person might change based upon what one of my mentors calls their target situation. So Audrey Richmond, she's the only person I've heard to use this phrase. So target situation. Most people teach target audience or ideal client avatar. However, that can change. And so, for example, my first book that I wrote, New Mom Thoughts, Real Questions for Moms with Real Feelings. This is something that is a great example of a target situation, because at some point you're not going to still be a new mom. You might still have those same memories, but you're not going to be a new mom forever. And so that's something that fits a specific time period in their lives. And the way that I wrote it, I created it so that if you were looking back in the past, it could still resonate with you. So I do have moms that come up to me and say, I wish I had this book when my child was first born, but now I'm using it as like a way to remember. Now that is an option. But what I like about what Audrea says is that basically it's the concept of you might just be in this situation for now. So this might just be something that applies to you in this season. It might not be something that you're permanently tied to. And that can be a little more fine-tuned, a little more nuanced, because it's true, like you have different seasons of your lives. So for example, I have a friend, she's going through perimenopause and she's doing hormone replacement therapy and some other stuff. And so this is a season for her. It's been a long season trying to get answers and stuff like that, but she's not always going to have to deal with this for the rest of her life, hopefully, prayerfully. And so for your reader, for your ideal client, you are going to really want to get fine-tuned details about what it is that they are needing in this current moment and where they want to go in their next moment. And so in order to do that, you have to really be willing to block out everything except for that, and have to really understand that they are coming to you because whatever it is that you're providing solves a problem for them. You're either solving a problem that's a right here, right now type of problem, or a problem that's like, if you don't do this, then this is going to happen down the line. And of course, there's different levels of urgency with that. But your book and your framework is going to be something that serves them so that they can better serve their own audience, depending upon how your stuff is structured, or it's going to be something where they are able to serve themselves. So once again, they're serving themselves or serving their audience. And so when it comes to finding your audience, it's so important to do this for a variety of reasons. When you find your reader, when you find the things that make them tick, the things that they like, the things that they would never do, it makes your marketing infinitely easier. It makes it so that you have a very clear picture of what exactly it is that they're looking for, what it is that they've already experienced, and their thoughts about that experience. It also helps you to know what they're going to be more likely to say yes to. And I think about this as a parent, that there's certain things that my oldest, he's in kindergarten, he will ask me that he won't ask his dad. Or he'll ask my husband that he won't ask me. And he's already learned and associated with us having different preferences. Now, at the end of the day, we're on the same page, so we will check with the other person. But it's something where your reader is going to be moving and operating in the space of their lived experiences. And with that, it helps you to have a shorter time frame from ask to yes. So if you understand who your audience is, you understand who your reader is, then you can have a shorter distance between when you first met them to when they are signing up for your program or service, or when they're buying your book. And you don't have to actually have that wonder. You know how sometimes in the back of your mind, you're like, did they just buy my book to be nice? Or did they buy it because they actually are genuinely interested in what's in it? And you will have more of the latter when you are advertising to people who are a good fit for you, who are your ideal person. Then you don't have to wonder about that as much, because you understand that your book solves their problem, or it gives them the first step to solving their problem, and they're able to come to you to kind of get the rest of that transformation. And then it also makes you more confident in your ask. So when you know that what your reader is trying to fix is already tied to your book, when the answer is already inside your book, you have your framework there, or you have an invitation for them to come and to work with you to get the solution, then it makes it so that you can be more confident when you are asking someone to purchase your book or asking them to sign up for your program. And it also makes it so that you are understanding that you have the solution for them and you're inviting them. So it's not that you are begging, you're not pleading. It's just, okay, hey, I see that you need help with XYZ. I've been able to get this result for these people that are in these case studies inside my book, as well as myself. And this is the process that I use to get it done. And when I say this, your book is doing the talking for you. Your book is using your frameworks, using your processes, and it's laying it out so that it makes it easier for someone to see how they can have a similar result, or that they can have the belief system that you actually know what you're doing and know what you're talking about. And so when you have that in place, it makes it a lot easier to ask for the sale, makes it a lot easier to ask people to buy things, to work with you, because you have already created a structure for them to be able to refer back to repeatedly, to be able to quote and cite you. I think about when we were in college and we had to cite X number of sources using MLA format, APA format, Chicago, all of that, looking at the Purdue OWL website. When you are confident in those things and you know you've included those in your book, you become a point of credibility. And they are more likely to trust you because you've taken the time, energy, and effort to create this resource, holding up a copy of my book, one of my books. You've created this thing that they can then use as a roadmap and a guide. And they're also more likely to want what you have. So if they see that, okay, this person is able to get this result and I've seen how they mapped out that result, how can I get that result for myself? How can I do that? And so your book is an invitation to them that gives them somewhat of a warm exchange, so that way they get to know you, they get to understand how you operate without you having to hop on an extensive sales call, or without them having to join a webinar, and not saying that they won't still do those things, but when they do, they're going to be more likely to be excited to be there. They're going to be more likely to feel like they're at home. And I say that from experience. So right now I'm in the midst of the Pre-Order Profits Challenge. And so it's a 4-day challenge that helps authors to be able to avoid costly pre-order mistakes, as well as develop success strategies to host a pre-order on their website. That's essentially the premise. And so with this, the attendees that I had over the past couple of days, they signed up. Of course, they signed up as a result of seeing me on social media or being on my email list. So they were already pre-nurtured before they got into this challenge. And during the process, I of course also speak about profitable publishing with pre-orders, which is my book that I'm going to refer to here. And so as I'm referring to it, they're like, oh yeah, I remember that was in this part, or this is an amazing book, y'all, like you need to grab a copy of it. And so it creates this internal marketing machine where people are already referring people to you, and they're letting people know, hey, this is the book for you. And then also it helps people to invite people on the journey. So for example, one of the attendees, Andrea H., she actually invited like 4 or 5 people. And I think it was more than that, but 4 or 5 people that she invited actually showed up and registered for the challenge. And so that brought in a new wave of people, which was nice and helpful and great, because those people are ones I didn't know before, but she worked on an anthology with them, and she knew that the content would be helpful for them as they started to publish their own individual books outside of that anthology. And so when you have the understanding of where your audience is, and the fact that your audience is specifically for you and not for someone else, meaning by that you understand who your audience is, how they operate, what things they like, what they don't like, what things tick them off, what things they're going to be more likely to say yes to versus no to, then you really move into a position of being able to serve them better. And as a reminder, I'm going to read you a quote from my book, and it is that you should remember your book fits someone's needs. Marketing to your right reader also means you're serving while you're selling. Selling is serving. And that's on page 41. And this is a concept I had to really get comfortable with, because I used to be afraid, and not like scared in a corner, but I used to be timid, I should say, about asking people to buy things outside of my book. But when I looked at it at a deeper level, I started to realize that like I can serve them better in a coaching container. I can serve them on a deeper level in a VIP day. And so with that, your book is the gateway, and it's the thing that is actually going to help them to realize that they have some type of problem. They are getting kind of the initial inklings of being able to solve it, and that they may need to work with you for the next level. Now, there are some books that are structured, including my book, Profitable Publishing with Pre-Orders, where they don't have to work with you to be able to get their full transformation. So back on episode 4, I interviewed author Kendra Pecci, and she was able to use the Pre-Order Profits Challenge plus a copy of Profitable Publishing with Pre-Orders to be able to generate $4,000 in pre-order income. And so that was about 233 books that she sold on her site. And then she transitioned onto Amazon after her pre-order was over. And so she was able to get her full transformation, to get those results by attending the challenge and then also reading the book. Now, that's just because that's her level of readiness. That's the level of tenacity that she had. And she was able to kind of manage those things on her own. Now, she did do a modified version, which is also something your audience will do, is that they may not follow your structure and your framework to a T, which is fine. They can still get the results even if they're not doing that. So that's one level. Then the next level of when you really understand your reader is the fact that they might need to work alongside you in a group coaching container or some type of thing where it has touch points. And with that one, that's where maybe your reader, they need the understanding, and then they also need to see how to apply it alongside you. They might need some accountability. Inside the Pre-Order Profits Challenge that I'm hosting right now, author Donnie Bryant. He's a email copywriter extraordinaire. He mentioned that the only way that he wrote his last book is that he had accountability. So he was in a, presumably a group setting, or at least a setting with a coach, where he was able to complete that process because he had somebody that was going to check in on him. Now, when you understand your reader, you'll know what kind of person they are. So you'll start to understand, okay, well, my people need to have a group container or they're not going to do any of their work. Like thinking of the classroom setting, have had some students where you kind of just let them do their thing, they get it done, you check on them, but they're good to go. And then other students are like, no, I need to be able to talk to somebody, I need to talk it out, I need to work with them in order to complete my work, or it's not going to get done. And you have other kids that are just on all levels of the spectrum. So as you understand your reader, then you'll start to understand the things that they expect, the things that they are able to say that, okay, I don't really quite like that. You're able to understand the things that really excite them. And so with this is all a part of the process of serving them while selling. Because when people pay, you may have heard this phrase, when people pay, they pay attention. Think about how many free downloads that you have that you've never consumed. Or think about how many Kindle books that you have grabbed because they were on a countdown deal, or they were on a free weekend, like, okay, my book's free until Monday. Please go download a copy and leave a review. Think about how many ones you haven't read, just as a natural thing. And there's actually a Japanese concept of collecting books, and I do not know how to pronounce it. It sounds a little bit like Sudoku, but basically it's the concept of collecting books with the intention of reading them, or just for them to like sit and look pretty. And so that's something that happens, is that we as a society do that. But you don't want people to do that with your book. Like, just being honest. We know that it happens, but we don't want it to happen with our books. And so being sure that you are understanding your audience and really realizing your book is not for everyone, that helps you to be able to avoid that, because your people are going to be really excited and raving fans of your work. So that way they are not overwhelmed, but they are ready to read your book by the time it gets to them. And if you are hosting a pre-order and doing this in the realm of pre-orders, then you can use that to galvanize them and to encourage them to be able to help you with your launch process. And so just remember that your book is not for everyone, but it is for a select group of people who are excited to read what you have to write. And remember also that you don't have to have hundreds or thousands of followers to be successful. You also don't even have to rely on social media as a prominent source of your audience, even though it is pretty accessible to a large majority of the population. But there are some authors who strictly do podcasts, and that's their form of marketing. And so they're just a podcast guest. Not just, but they focus on being a podcast guest. So like Hal Elrod, that was one of his strategies that he used predominantly, was being on podcasts, and that helped him to sell millions of copies of the book, The Miracle Morning. And so if you're choosing that route, that means that you understand your person, your ideal reader, is okay with listening to tons of podcasts. You understand that they might be on podcasts that are similar. That would be the approach that you would take, is that making sure that you are on those platforms. So that way, when they hear you across multiple shows, it's like, oh, I just heard them over here. She was over there. She was over there. Like, they see this pattern, and they're the type of people that likes to listen to podcasts. And so if your people are not that type of person, you probably wouldn't pick that. You probably wouldn't want to pick that as a predominant method of your marketing, because it doesn't really represent what your people want to see or hear or experience. And so with that, and so if this is something that you are needing support with, this is actually something I tackle inside of my Pre-Order Profits Accelerator. And so it's a 9-week group coaching program where we will actually walk through the process of not only attracting your readers, but actually getting them to buy your book during the pre-order period. So before your book is released, your readers will not only be excited that your book is coming out, they will help you to develop your launch, and they will help you by being on your street team, being a part of your audience that are your early adopters, and you're able to get that feedback to then develop the rest of your book, or to use it as a way to introduce the world to what it is that you are offering. And so if you're interested, you can visit preorderprofits.com/join to get more information and see which level of the program is a good fit for you. Now, going back to finding our readers, but finding them in a way that really focuses on realizing that they are the ones that you're looking for. They're the ones that are going to be who shapes the decisions that you're making when it comes to your book. Because even though your book is for you, it's really for them. So even though you have been entrusted with stewarding your book as a gift, and maybe it's a gift from the Lord, and so the Lord is giving you this gift and deposited it in your spirit, that it needs to come out. You are the steward, you're the vessel. And so your book is the same way. That's how you are showcasing your information. But really, your book is for your readers. The purpose of your book is to help your readers get a transformation. Now, if you are focusing on the things that you want and not listening to your readers, then it's going to come off that this was not something that you used to support them. It's going to be basically like a me show, and I'm using air quotes. It's going to feel as if, okay, this isn't really quite what I was looking for. It started off maybe in a way that seemed as if it was a good fit, but then there's some deviations from that. And so you really want to be attuned to focusing on who your book is for and how they would actually showcase that, or how would they actually, what's the word I'm looking for, and how they would actually want to be served. Because remember, selling is serving. And so when you're selling your book to them, when you're selling your products or services to them, you want to make it in a way that it's a no-brainer for them to go ahead and grab your book and to make it an easy read for them. It should feel like a natural fit. It should feel like, this is the thing I didn't know I needed. And so last night during the Pre-Order Profits Challenge, one of the attendees mentioned that, and I'm paraphrasing, but she mentioned that the information she was learning during the challenge was different than any information she had heard before from any kind of author spaces, but that it made a lot of sense. And so inside the challenge, we talk about why you shouldn't host your pre-orders on Amazon. And if you need a refresher on that, then I invite you to go back to listen to the previous episode on that of the podcast. But it's where you start to basically understand your reader more than they understand themselves. You understand your client more than they understand themselves, to the point where it's like, well, dang, I didn't know I needed that. But now that you mentioned it, yes, I would love to have that. And so this comes from having a deep understanding of them. It comes from researching them. And so once again, if you haven't listened to that episode 7, then I would encourage you to go back and listen to it. But in this case, when you are understanding that your book is not for everybody, then it makes it so that you are freer to really focus on the people that your book is for. And then it also means that you don't have to feel salesy when you're asking them to buy your book. You don't have to feel like, are they going to like it? Is this a good choice? Because they've already expressed to you, either directly or indirectly, that they have something they're trying to fix. And so I'll use an example from earlier today. Andrea, she was inviting people to the challenge, and we're in a Facebook group that's specifically for authors. And so inside the group, someone put up a post that was asking about how do you set up your pre-orders. And Andrea's like, I'm in a challenge right now with Ashley. So she tags me and she adds the link to the challenge and says, hey, you should join. Tonight we're talking about finding your readers, because that was tonight's topic. And so it just is a no-brainer, because it's like, oh, this person has expressed, I have this need. The thing that I'm offering fits that need. It fills that need. So clearly I'm going to tell you about this thing, and it positions it so you don't feel like icky, you don't feel salesy, because you're not trying to hawk something at them that they don't already have an interest in. I think about it like used cars. Sorry if you're a used car salesperson, but I think about like used car salespeople. So they are often kind of deemed as like relentless, and they are someone who basically is going to keep selling to you whether you want to be sold to or not. And that's not typically the vibe that you're going for. If you're someone who really has a big heart, you really want to make sure that the people that you are offering your book to, your services to, is actually interested in what it is that you're trying to sell them. Because at the end of the day, your moral compass is there. And so when you know who your person is, when you understand them, when you realize that you don't have to worry about attracting all these other people, you don't have to put on airs, you don't have to add all these extra caveats, because it's just like you're showing up as your whole self. They understand it, they get you, and they are a part of your ecosystem. And so in the case of Andrea, she is definitely a part of my ecosystem. She's been a member of my group for quite some time, and she's very consistent in her own marketing for her book. And so I appreciate her, but I use her as an example to say, I'm using her as an example to say that when people feel comfortable with you, when people feel like you really have their best interests at heart, and you've been able to support them through either your book or your programs or your communities, then they will go to bat for you, and then they will attract other people who are like them. So that way it's not just you trying to get these people on this new path that they've asked for. It's your people who you have galvanized, your people who you have basically equipped to understand that, okay, this is how we conduct ourselves. And you can come over here as well and be part of this group. And then you can also get this transformation. And so it just is a beautiful thing because it helps you to not be burnout, and then also helps you to better process the needs of your person outside of just an individual, but also as like the whole group of people that you have attracted. And so if this is something you need support with, once again, I do focus on this inside of my Pre-Order Profits Accelerator. And so the program is geared towards helping you to attract your readers, to generate your income, and to pre-sell your book so that you are able to pay for your publishing costs, to pay for your marketing costs, to pay for household expenses, whatever the case may be, but basically so that you can be a profitable author within the first 30 to 90 days of your release. And so if that's something you're interested in, then you can visit preorderprofits.com/join, and I'll also put the link in the show notes. Now, lastly, let's recap what we talked about. So when it comes to understanding your audience, it's very important to realize that your book is not for everyone. Your book is for a select group of people who need the transformation that your book provides. And when you are crystal clear about that, then you can actually create a space for them to be able to self-qualify and say, hey, I would really like to hear more information about that thing. And it also makes it so that you are able to not feel salesy when you're talking to them about the things that you offer. And so I want to encourage you to think about how you can really narrow down your ideal customer, your ideal reader, and the ways in which you can serve them. Also, consider the ways in which you can block out any others that don't fit that in a respectful way, respectfully. Block out any others that don't fit that so that you are maximizing your book sales and your signups for your services. So until next time, stay profitable.